Welcome, everybody, to Follow the Data with Dr. Frank. Tonight, it's Friday, November 8th. What a week we've had. I've got a lot of data to discuss with you tonight, but I want to postpone that because we have some things happening in Shasta County, and we have the privilege of having a couple of the Shasta folks here with us. Let me bring them up right away, and then we'll get to the other stuff. So here we go. We got Patrick. We got Patty. Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Dr. Frank.
Hi, Dr. Frank. Good to see you.
It's great to see you. And we've got, Pat, let me just introduce you for a second. So Patrick and I have spent a lot of time speaking in Shasta County together. He's still the commissioner there, although you're on your way out, as I understand, right? You've been replaced, which I can't understand. But anyway, they've replaced you. So how many more days do you have left?
Well, I have about 2 more months, Dr. Frank, and that's what's rumored anyways.
That's what it's rumored. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. I remember one of my favorite things about you is when I was I was sitting in your commissioner's, in the supervisor's meeting, and you guys voted in to allow. Hi, Judy. You guys voted to allow you to carry weapons into the building to protect yourself.
That is correct.
And I just thought that was like a brilliant move. I mean, because you need to defend yourself. And hold on. So here, I first should have turned my phone off. So that shows you I'm an amateur. Let me get my phone off. Go ahead.
Most people, don't know that I've worked in a gun shop my entire life from the age of 4 on, and I'm almost 57 now. So I've worked in a gun shop my entire life. So the Second Amendment has a little bit of meaning to me. And when they infringe upon that, which they have greatly in California, I'm going to do everything I can to allow people the right to keep and bear arms, which is under attack in the United States, but really under attack in California.
Well, I appreciate that battle. That's a super important battle. I was in a presentation in Ohio this year in April, and Patrick Byrne was there, and he says, our country's in the middle of a Bezmenov revolution. He says, and the only reason it hasn't succeeded so far is because we have so many guns. So we got to keep our guns. We got to keep them close by our side. I went grocery shopping today, and you better believe I had my 1911 on my hip, and I like to wear it big and proud because we're a constitutional carry state. And we either use our rights or we lose them. So that's what I'm doing. But anyway, that's one of my favorite things about you. Not to mention the fact that from early on, you and I were working on election integrity. You were going to say something.
Well, one of my friends recently, I found out he only had 12 guns, and I was really disappointed with him.
Yeah, I've got that's about right. And so I'm sorry to disappoint.
No, Dr. Frank, that is not right. As a gun retailer, 12 guns. I have 12 guns under my pillow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad. Now, the other person with us is Patty Plumb. And I met you first about 3 years ago.
Right.
And you're what I like to call a super mom. But you've been promoted since then. When I first met you, we teamed up and we were doing election reform stuff there in Shasta County. And of course, I was going around the country bragging about the work you did there. But tell us a little bit about yourself so people know who you are.
Well, my husband and I live here in Northern California, and it's Shasta County, and we were bitten by the bug of going after truth and justice years ago. We see this whole COVID circus as a gift to us because otherwise we wouldn't go into discovery. And so what was so mysterious to us as far as the method of elections and everything became a journey of discovery. And so our first attempt to be able to ask questions of our ROV was on July 9th, 2021. And all I did was sit down with Kathy Darling Allen and ask her, Kathy, tell me, where do our ballots come from? And she said, run back. I said, did you say run back? And she says, no, run back. And so it was the first time I heard it was in 2021. And now we are full circle coming all the way around and seeing how Runback, the printer in Arizona, has betrayed us coming and going. And so we're at a precipice right now to be able to expose some of the other methods that have taken our elections. There's several. And so with that, we've been able to inspire and educate our public in different arenas and let them know that their vote is their voice and it's up to them to fight for it if they want to keep it.
Way to go. I've been telling everybody around the country that the way we're going to win this is not from the top down. which
Right.
is the way I started my work, thinking, Mr. Smarty Pants could go meet with, secretaries of states and legislatures and we could fix the problem. So, I laugh at myself now how naive I was at the beginning, but now I've learned it's from the bottom up, and it's people like you where the battle lies. I tell people, they say, oh, I want to run for Congress. I'm like, don't waste your time. You need to be a county supervisor. That's like the most important place in the country right now. That's the battle lines. We had a wonderful day. We this week, right? We Trump won, which is awesome, which is why I'm wearing my Trump tie. But I've been telling everybody, this is only Normandy.
Right.
We've secured the beachhead. Now we have to go on to Berlin, and there's a slog ahead, and the battle ain't over. We got work to do. So anyway, and you guys are right there at the front lines. It feels to me like we've got Normandy, but you guys are starting to push into France, and it's messy and ugly. Who wants to describe the situation you guys are in? It's a good story.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Well, I guess I'll start, and then Patty will kind of back us up. We've both been down many times, lost about put it more out at the ROV, the registrar's office this week than I have, but I've been down there almost
Hold
every
on there,
day.
Patrick. We're going to start you over again because you're breaking up there, brother.
I got a bad connection. You're frozen,
right.
Patrick. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I tell you what. Are you good now? Try it again.
I'm good.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
start over.
Both myself and Patty, there we go. And so, Patty, along with others, Patty is a Shasta County an election commissioner. I'm a Shasta
new
County
thing,
supervisor.
Right?
And
promoted?
That's new. I created that last year when I was chair. So I
Thank
take some good pride in that. And we've got some great people on that commission. And they're to make recommendations to the board. And Patty's done a great job. So I really appreciate her work, along with Roneen and Margaret. They've done a really good job getting information to the board. Now, this week has been an interesting week. Starting on election day, we all started, and actually the work started before the election day, but I started going down to the ROV on election day and just to observe. And, it's a little bit of a tense relationship when I go down to the ROV because I'm not exactly well-liked, if we could put it that way. I don't say anything to anybody. I'm not rude or confrontational. I'm just there to observe. So I go upstairs to take a look and to look to what we have going on. And what we have is a couple issues. So first, we did a couple weeks ago before the election a logic and accuracy test with our Hart Civic machines, and everything seemed to go fine, other than we had no meaningful observation, meaning they put us out, at 10 feet away, so I can't see what's going on. And I was a bit critical of the ROV taller at that time because one of the things that he said was we were going to have meaningful observation. And I wasn't close enough to see marks on ballots, which there shouldn't be any problem with that. This should be a very public process, and that wasn't happening. So on election day, actually before the election day, we started hearing about troubles with our Hart machines not being able to scan the ballots. Now, our ballots are produced by Runbeck. For anybody that doesn't know Runbeck, most people should know Runbeck, out of Arizona. They've been under investigation before, but our ballots are produced by Runbeck, and they're run through the electronic tabulators by Hart. And it's a Canon, I think it's a 2140 electronic scanner, but our system is Hart Civic, Hart Verdi. And what we found was
his connection is breaking up again.
Oh, goodness.
What did he find, Patty?
Well, that the system itself, the printers are betraying us, and he and our CEO, David Rickert, actually saw the ballots that they were putting through the printer, and they saw the parts that were marked, and they came through on the other side different, just right before their eyes. Either they were removed or they were marked in a different spot.
Why were they putting ballots through the scanners again?
They're putting through the Runbeck printer to make a copy of it. I don't know. There's so many mysterious things that are going on. It feels like the process is very fluid and we can't seem to keep track of what's really happening.
Well, my understanding, and when Patrick comes back, he can fix it, but my understanding is that You guys, when you tried to put your ballots through the machines, they wouldn't scan properly because they'd been oversprayed. The printer, when they printed the barcodes on the ballots, they put a coating over it to keep it from smearing, but they put too much on, so it's too reflective. So the scanning machines weren't reading the ballots. So you've got all these ballots filled out by people, but the machines can't read them. And so you guys had set up a system where you were putting the ballots through another system, and it was supposed to be copying them onto a ballot that could be read by your machines. And that's what Patrick was observing.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Dr. Frank?
Okay, we can hear you now. Yeah,
there we go. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, so as we, Shasta County, as we ran our ballots, the Runbeck ballots through the system, half of them were not being picked up. And so they were being separated. So then Runbeck said they would come to Shasta County and they would bring a different scanning machine and they would fix the problem. So in a separate room, they set up 4 different stations, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they were going to make an electronic image of the ballot and then duplicate it. And there would be 2 people per station. So 4 stations times 2. So I went down there on election day in the morning to take a look at that process. And I was only there looking at that section for 2 minutes. And in those 2 minutes, I saw 2 times that the scanned ballot and then the duplicated ballot was different. They missed an entire race. And the election observer, the election official had to correct it. And they did 2 times in 2 minutes.
Okay, let's make sure that fact is very clear. They were feeding a ballot through, and what's supposed to happen is when you feed that ballot through, it's supposed to produce a copy. But what you're saying is the copy changed the race.
So all I know is I'm looking at duplicator machine number 4 because that's all I can see.
Yeah.
I cannot see duplicator machine 1, 2, and 3. They're out of reach. But duplicator 4 I can see. The image that I'm looking at is supposed to be a duplicate of the ballot, which I can't verify. But if that's true, the duplicate of that did not match in about every 1 and 3.
Wow.
A race was missing. Now, I couldn't determine if there was a pattern of a particular district or a particular race. Now, I will say the election officials, there were 2 there, they would make that correction.
Oh, so they were watching and they were noticing it wasn't copying properly, and so they were fixing it.
They had to look very carefully, and they had to do a lot of work to fix these mistakes. Now, keep in mind, we had approximately 40 to 50,000 ballots that had to be scanned. There's 2 ballots, front and back, so we have 140,000 images.
And 1 and 3 of them are bad.
And about 1 and 3 were bad. Now, here's what I did see. Now, I went down there 4 days in a row, and the pattern that I saw was a light mark, an X, or a check, or something that wasn't completely filled in was never transferred over, never.
Wow.
And then half the time, a mark that was completely filled in was not put over. So on the first day, I saw 2 mistakes in 2 minutes. I went back to work, didn't think too much about it. Then I started thinking about it, and I thought, I wonder if that's occurring all day.
Yeah.
And so I went back down there at 3:30 on election day, and I brought the CEO of Shasta County, Dave Rickert, great guy. I called Dave and I said, hey, Dave, I think I got a problem here. You probably want to take a look at this, right? And I'm thinking to myself, hey, it's probably all going to be fine now, right? You know? And so I go down there.
They'll have it worked out by now.
We'll have it figured out, right? But I go down there at 3:30, and our CEO meets me there exact same time. We go upstairs, we take a look, and he goes up. There's one. There's another, and another, and another. We had 6 mistakes, 6 non-marks that were clearly marked in about 10 minutes. And so he understood the problem very quickly. I went down there several days in a row afterwards. It got worse, got a little better, and it got worse again. And so what we're seeing is this can't be an electronic image of the ballot, right? Because it would be exactly the same.
Right.
And so it's something different. And again, these people, these 8 people, 4 stations, 2 people per station, they're going to have to look at 140,000 images. And are they going to catch all the mistakes that Runbeck did? Now, Runbeck made the mistake of printing ballots that we couldn't read. Now, Hart InterCivic is not a new system. Runbeck's not a new system.
No.
These are old systems. And they're saying it's an overspray issue, but is it? And the electronic image that Runbeck, they brought out 3 machines. I don't know what the machines are. I don't know if they're Canons or Leicas or what, because they didn't say, and I can't see them. They're saying this is the image, and then they reproduce it. The reproduced image is not consistent with the image. I don't even know if the reproduced image is correct.
I don't think it sounds to me, and I wasn't there, but it sounds to me like they weren't reproducing images. It sounds like what they were trying to do is read the old ballot and print new ballots. That's what it sounds like. And
the other problem with this is now we've got, we had 117,000 ballots. Runbeck brought in another 100,000 just to be on the safe side. We're now producing electronic ballots that have no folds and no human marks, all electronic marks. So in Shasta County today, right now, we've got over 200,000 ballots in this county, and we've only got about 75,000 people voting.
Somebody better keep them separate.
And we only have the registered voters is 115,626. That's registered, but like he said, only 75,000 are voting. So there's all these extra ballots.
And now when you go down there, you've got rooms. I see ballots. I see ballots that are still in envelopes. I see ballots in this room. I see ballots in that room. I see ballots over there. I showed and demonstrated to our CEO that, when you have an electronic scanner and you have one that I can see, I'm okay with that, right? When I can see what's happening in an electronic scanner, but I got 3 other scanners that I can't see. There's no meaningful observation. When you're doing duplication and I can see duplication station number 4, I can see that, but I can't see duplication station 1, 2, and 3. I mean, why do that? I mean, the lack of transparency and the lack of trust
and the opportunity for error,
right,
and lack of chain of custody. I can't see what's going on, and I'm the only person in Shasta County that saw the duplication. Now, I also got the CEO there, so actually I'm the second person. So I'm the first, but our CEO Dave Burkett was the second.
Well, it's nice that that it was corroborated. That's good, because you're not just some wackadoodle. You brought somebody else in.
Yeah, and then I later also brought in a photographer, but they wouldn't let us take pictures because it's easy to see. It doesn't take you can sit there and watch, and it's within a minute, and you see that it's not happening.
Right.
And it just goes to show that these electronic machines are so flawed. And what I will say about Shasta County election officials, they're better than the machines. They're making the corrections. What I saw when they were making the errors, they were fixing them, which is what I've said all along, is that humans are better than these machines. We could have been done with this election. We could have been done with it. We're still counting. We don't even have half of our ballots counted yet. And they're still messing around with these machines. Runbeck's brought in this machine. I don't even know I don't even know if it's certified, to be honest.
Wow. So think about it. If you put together a team, you could count them and you'd be done. If you count them by hand. And I bet you that you should do that anyway. After the fact, you should do a recount and see how many mistakes they made. Because I wouldn't trust it anyway. They better be keeping those 75,000 ballots separate.
Here the difference is, our Shasta County workers, they're not the problem. They're good people.
Sure.
They're trying to do their job.
Sure.
They're working hard. I'm seeing them making corrections. I see them doing their job.
Right.
And so my hat's off to them. But these machines, they're not square. And it didn't take very much to take a look at that. Now, I had talked to our county staff. We brought over 12 folks from 1450 Court Street, which is our administration center, over to the election center to help out. And they knew the problem too. But did you think that they talked about it? They didn't talk about it.
Nobody's allowed it, because there's a propaganda they have to maintain.
Right. And they're wanting to let the public know that these machines are square. And I'm saying, I've just shown you that these machines can't do the job. They're not good. In 2012 in Shasta County, we had a recount. We had a very close election on a city council race, separated by 9 votes. That's from that's a very tight race. We counted 32,000 ballots with a group of 3 or 4 people per table in 2.5 days, and we did it correctly without a single mistake. Humans are better than these machines, and they keep saying that we're highly flawed. But when you put 2 or 3 sets of eyeballs on a ballot, ballots are easy to count. It's pretty easy. I'd love to have a job where I just count ballots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mark, this mark, that mark. It's pretty easy. And when you do it in like 4-hour shifts, the public loves doing that. Engage the public. They want to do this work.
Yes.
They're hungry for it. It's how you restore trust. These are not difficult things to do, but everything throughout United States that they're doing, but particularly in California, is destroying trust. And we're seeing it right here in Shasta County. The good news with Shasta County is that we've got a lot of good, hardworking people. Patty, Ronine, Bev, Tim, a ton of people out there working. We've got guys like you coming in and various other experts. We're going to expose this stuff, and we are exposing it. The machines can't be trusted. You've got to go back to one-day voting, paper ballots, same day at the precincts, and we're going to get there. And I think with President Trump back in office here shortly, somehow by the grace of God, we're going to get there. Because what's at stake is our country's at stake, and where it happens is at the county level, and that's why Shasta County has had so much international news. And it's not because our votes, the numbers matter. It's the process that matters. And we know what's right, and this ain't right, but we're going to make it right. And, and I appreciate Dr. Frank. I appreciate Patty, on our commission. We just got to keep pushing forward. We're going to get this thing right. We've got a great opportunity now to have fair elections, because we've been selecting. We haven't had elections. We've had selections. That's what we've had.
Right.
Well, I've been bragging about you guys all around the country, because everybody wants to hear about what's going on in Shasta. And one of the things you guys did, I've been actually, I'm a smart guy, but smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. And so I'm trying to be wise. And so I've known, I've learned from some of the mistakes we've made in the field. But one of the things you guys did, they call me the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity. I feel like I'm going around cross-pollinating. The idea that you guys did, that I've rubber stamped all over the country, is you established an election commission. And so, in other words, the supervisors, for those of you who don't know out there, the supervisors selected a commission. It's a formal commission to investigate this stuff. And that is a brilliant political strategy as well as a very practical strategy. You want to talk about that for a minute? But Patty, you're the one that's on that now, right?
Right. I came in and Patrick appointed me after Bev had come in initially last October.
Yeah.
And boy, was it ever something that people really reacted strongly to. They felt really threatened by Election Commission. I don't know why, but just because we are asking questions and staying curious, we're not satisfied with just these pat answers that are given to us by the ROV or anyone else in staff. We said, I've been annoying people, especially the past several months. I keep going in and asking more questions. I act like Columbo with the rain jacket, excuse me, I just have one more question. I'm sorry, I know. And they're just like, oh, somebody get rid of her. But staying curious and not taking the bitter bait, that's just the key for us to say, okay, there's plenty of reasons to get frustrated and angry, but we've got to get to a solution. And that means reaching over both sides. We had a Board of Supervisor meeting last night, and it was so amazing because both sides rose up and spoke. But some people were just saying, we just want to be able to work together. What is it that can unify us? There's plenty of things that can divide us. Plenty of things to get offended. If someone wants to be offended, they'll always find a reason to be offended. What is the solution that can draw us together? So we all agree upon the children. Elections is about our children, about protecting the innocence of our children. So when you can boil it down to that, say, can we agree that we want to have more transparency and to really see what's happening here and have something called dual custody where you get Democrats and Republicans on both sides of the table and we're counting ballots together. What would that look like? That would be an amazing goal. So that's the direction we're trying to go. We're not sure how quickly we can get there. That's our path forward. Whether it's in 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, that's where we're going to be. We're going to be sitting at the table with people and looking at ballots together on one day, voting the same day and casting and counting the same day. So, but between here and there, we're feeling honestly very vulnerable because things are shifting and the water is swirling. And here, no one's counting over the weekend, but we sense that things are already going in a different direction. Like a lot of these votes are going over here now, and we don't know how to stop them. It's like putting, fingers in the holes in the dikes. And how do we stop the hemorrhaging that's happening? So all the different methods that we've used to bring exposure and to bring back integrity and dignity to this process is being dismissed, but we just keep repeating, no, this is what we're doing. We're trying to train that puppy to go potty on the newspaper. Nope, you go over here. No, I'm sorry, but you got to go over here. So we just are doing simple things to show them this is what the Constitution says. And people would say, oh, well, Trump said we have to vote early. Let's go ahead and get our vote in early. So some people did that. And I'm like, you know what? You can do that.
Yeah.
But the Constitution says on election day. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So it's been an education, but we're trying to stay positive, know that there is an outcome that we're all going to agree upon eventually.
That what's most important is that you don't quit fighting. And,
right.
It's like you don't take Normandy and then get back on the boats and go back to we've taken Normandy. Your fight is one of the most important fights. I encourage you to keep going, and I'm at your disposal. I've flown out there a couple of times for you, and anytime you need me, I'm at your disposal. And not just me, I'm just another soldier. Maybe I'm a good sniper, but you guys have, but you have plenty of soldiers there. I've met your teams. You have good folks, and you're an inspiration. You're more than just fixing your own elections. You're also an inspiration to other people around the country. So I so appreciate your guys' work. The one of the things that I think people would be interested to know, and I've been telling this story around the country, is it was a big fight. I mean, this wasn't just one election. You've been fighting this for 4 years.
Yeah.
And you fought hard, and you were able to get a 3-2 majority on your county supervisor. And then one of the first things they did, I remember January of 2021, 2023, you guys voted out the Dominion machines. That was a big deal. Okay. And it created national news. And of course, the state is not happy with you. And so the state has been, coming after you. And they supported a recall effort against Kevin Cry on the supervisor. And he survived that recall effort, which is wonderful news. And I remember you telling me, Patrick, that the state actually paid for a recount of that race, right? It was like $400,000. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, we've been at this for a little while, and so
just a little while,
and we didn't know what we were getting into, right? And when I got elected in 2020, it started in 2020, and I helped start a movement to bring transparency and to have conservatives in a conservative county, because we didn't have that before. And so through some good local PACs and a lot of hard work and a lot of fundraising, we were able to have a successful recall of a very bad actor in Leonard Modi. We were able to remove our CEO. That was another bad actor. We've removed over 25 of our department heads. Some have resigned, some have moved on, some were fired. We have overhauled our county to have a conservative county, which is what we deserve. This is a conservative county. We should have a conservative government. And so it's taken a lot of work. And was I thinking that that's what would start at the beginning? No, but the reality is, if you're going to save your country, you have to start at the county level. All these races, everything throughout this country is done at the county level. If we can't affect change in Sacramento, we're not going to affect change in Washington, but we can in our own county. And that is how you do it. That is how you do it. And so I started a movement. We had a ton of great people. None of these things can be done by themselves. It takes hundreds of people that are patriots to dig in, to say, hey, this is what we're going to leave to our children and to our grandchildren. And and that work begun. And, so we did a lot of hard work. We uncovered a lot of corruption, and we've made a lot of changes, but now we have to keep it moving forward. Now the goal is to continue this effort. Every county in this country can do what we've done. And that means if you're listening to my voice, if you're sitting there, and if you're a farmer, if you're a rancher, if you're a plumber, if you're a painter, and you think you can affect some change, you're wrong, because one person can. Patty has affected change. Ronnie's affected change. Tim and Dan.
Laura Hobbs. Yeah.
Lori, there's lots of people. Dr. Frank, we all have the ability to affect change, but we have to do it, because what's at stake is our country. And that's what we've done here in Shasta County. So we're not done. I think unfortunately, it's going to be a lifelong battle.
Yes.
We have to keep going. We can't stop.
That's exactly right. It's a lifelong battle. We've taken generations to get into this mess. We're not going to get, there's not a silver bullet getting back out.
Because we've always assumed everything was fine. For a lot of us, 2020 kind of opened our eyes.
Yep.
When that was the year that I won a board of supervisor seat. But I had won before on city council. But that year, in that November of 2022, I knew something was so wrong, and I didn't do anything about it. I sat for 3 days wondering, why do we have a president that was not elected? And I felt like I really felt like our country needed help at that time, and I didn't help. And so for me, it was worth the effort. My wife, all of my friends, I mean, everything that we've done is to raise funds and to fight to get the right people in office so that we can affect some change. And if we can affect some change in Shasta County, and we've had, reporters here from around the world, from the Netherlands, from Germany, from all over. And I've asked them, and I was struggling with, why did they come to Shasta County? We don't have enough votes here to matter, right? And they weren't answering. There was a reason, because if you can affect the change in your county, then it's going to be a ripple effect across this country, and we're going to get back to the country that we deserve. And so we're over the target. Yeah, we've had threatening letters from the Attorney General, Secretary of State, every kind of ACLU letter that you can imagine.
Bring it.
Yeah, those mean nothing to me, right? Those mean nothing. We're going to get back. We're going to keep fighting. We've got some great people here. And, I don't think our people are any different than people across this country. I think there's great people in every county. They just need to start realizing that you've got to take control of your county. You've got to start doing what's right, and you've got to put the work in. And yeah, it's going to be some work, and you're going to get name called, and you're going to get, I just got fined by the FPPC $10,000. You're going to get all that. You're going to get all that. And I can live with that, because I know what we're doing is right.
It's better than being in jail like Tina Peters.
That's right. Well, I was just going to say that.
We may have to do that too. You're right. Right. I mean, that may be where we have to do.
In
I would
war,
rather go to
there
jail.
are casualties.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So,
and what an honor to go to jail or go to prison for the right reasons too. Yeah. And you influence that you have, even when the audience is broad, you take it there, it's portable. The truth can set people free anywhere you go. And that's what we try to do. We just focus on whatever audience is in front of us. We give them the information, the Bill of Rights, that it's freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of print and press, freedom to assemble peaceably and to redress our grievances. We have to speak out. Why have we been harmed? And why do we allow this to continue? And what can we do to make the changes? And you just keep in the Word of God as our anchor, and the Constitution as our plumb line, and we keep coming back to baseline, that this is truth. It's worth fighting for. It's worth going to prison for. It's worth dying for. And that's where we stand.
I kid with our chair Cry all the time. I said, we get threatened to go to jail all the time, and I just told him, hey, that's fine. I just want the lower bunk.
That's awesome. Well, do you guys have anything else you want to share with
yeah, Dr. Frank. So this week we've had a pretty interesting meeting. I know Patty Plumb was there this week too. We had some disruption. We had a couple people arrested and go to jail at our meeting, and over the issue of CTCL, right? Our friends,
Center for Tech and Civic Life.
Yeah, Centers for Tech and Civic Life. Mark Zuckerberg, which has recently come into public view. He's testified in under oath that he regrets that $400 million being going out to various election offices because it was used for partisan politics. He admits to that under oath.
And it was used
So-
to cheat too, by the way. Go ahead.
Absolutely,
That's right.
and to mislead and all kinds of other things. Well, Shasta County in December of 2022 was selected for $1.5 million of CTCL funds.
Whoa.
$1.5 million.
For that
So,
tiny little county.
for a little county, right?
Yeah.
Because we're so good, right? That we got
It gets
1.5
worse.
No,
Listen to
because
this.
you're the battlefront and they got to make sure that they win the battlefront.
So in January, that was presented to council or to the board. I was
January
unaware
of
of it.
2024?
It was January of 2023, the same month I became chair.
Gotcha.
And so I put a motion up to say, no, we're going to deny this, that 29 states have denied this kind of money coming into elections. It's clear they're trying to have processes that would help certain demographics. And that's why it's been barred in half the states. That failed on a 2-3. So a counter proposal was made by Chair Cry that, hey, I'd like to have that $1.5 million, but we're going to put a counter proposal that it can only be used for the purchase of a building and nothing else. That counter proposal was approved on a 3-2 vote, and that was in January, early February of 2023. So I asked our acting CEO at the time, Mary Williams, a month later, hey, did that counter proposal, was it accepted? I figured it wouldn't be, right? She said no. I asked a few months later. She said no. In fact, the entire year of 2023, I was unaware that that counter proposal that wasn't sent forward to the CTCL. Kathy Allen, Darling, and our county council rewrote it, submitted it, it was approved, and they didn't tell us.
Wait a minute. Aren't you the supervisor? Aren't you guys the county supervisors?
The last I checked, we were.
Wow.
So our ROV rewrote it. I have 100.
By the way, for those of you in other states, ROV is Registrar of Voters. You might call them election officials or clerks. They call them ROVs in California. Go ahead, Patrick.
ROV, county clerk. She rewrote it. We've got 174 emails proving she rewrote it and sent it on. It got approved. And then when I was chair and asked if it was approved, no, it's not approved. We didn't know until 2024 that it was approved. So here we have malfeasance from the ROV.
He needs to go to jail.
And keep in mind, the assistant ROV sits on the CTCL committee. Imagine that.
No conflict there. So you guys gonna prosecute her? I'd prosecute her. I'd put her in jail.
It is the recommendation of our county CEO that we hire outside counsel to investigate malfeasance on whomever is involved. That is undergoing probably by this next meeting.
That's very important. You know, the what's been happening is the clerks around the country and the ROVs, et cetera, they've become kind of arrogant because they do things that are wrong and nobody ever does anything about it. So you guys are on the front line. You need to show the rest of the country, just like they did in Colorado with Tina Peters. In fact, the prosecuting attorney even said, we're going to make an example out of Tina Peters so that all the other clerks in the country, no one will question the integrity of their machines. Well, guess what? You need to make an example out of Kathy Darling Allen, and so that other people will say, well, wait a minute, our counties are going to come after us if we don't follow the rules. Go ahead.
You know, Dr. Frank, we're going to need a new ROV in about a year, and I'm pretty sure President Trump is going to pardon Tina Peters. So I may be on the phone with her.
Well, I spoke to her about it because when you guys were considering her before, she said she'd love to do it, but she wasn't sure what was going to happen because of the trial, and so she had to decline your invitation to be considered. But it's going to be complicated to get her out. I don't think it's going to be as simple as Trump just waving his magic wand, because it was a state case, not a federal one. And so there's some nuances to that, and I'm not sure how that's going to all turn out. So but of course I would love to have her.
Yeah.
We've also got a new Department of Health director, which is going to be awesome. But I love Tina, of course, and she's got new videos up. I talked about it the other night. where she's actually broadcasting now from jail. She's been there
We
over a
saw
month
her.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
With
it's-
Joel.
I'd like to know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, you guys
Well.
are awesome. Patrick, we're having a little trouble. You know, that's the nice thing about being up there in the mountains where you guys are. Shasta County is very special to me. As a boy, we used to drive up there all the time. I learned to water ski in Shasta Lake, and in fact, I was conceived in Shasta County. My folks went to Shasta College, and so that's it's a special place to me. It's a special place to me now, also because of our election battle together. And
That's right.
Just to show a practical example, your fight has led to many other counties in the country stepping up and saying, if they can do it, we can do it. And in your own state of California, Huntington Beach, in March, they announced that starting in 2026, they're running all their own local elections. And they have 400,000 voters there. And they're going to have a single day photo ID, signature, hand counting, all that stuff. I mean, it's like people are ganging up on them, which is awesome. So anyway,
it's so good. Well, I just want to say too, Doctor, that every county has the ability to create a Gideon's army. It's okay to be underestimated. I get so much more done when I'm underestimated. So Sidney Powell told us, go get your counties. And that's what you do. You go with your sheriff and anyone else that has any integrity in their position that you can link your armor with, bring the Constitution and expose corruption on every level. That's
You're
all
awesome.
I want to say. Okay. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
I'm so proud of you guys, and never hesitate to call me if you have some hot news, because what I'm going to be trying to do, for the first several years, for 4 years, essentially, I was on the road almost constantly going around the country. And I deliberately told my schedulers, you've met them, not to schedule me this week, because I wanted a chance to analyze data and I wanted a chance to react to whatever was happening in the country. And I'm not sure it's over yet. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen going forward, but I see my role changing from not necessarily being just going county to county as much as it is, waking people up, as much as it is going back to these counties and training up the teams. We've built an infrastructure nationally now. Right. I mean, you're part of that infrastructure, and we know who the good people are. And so now it's sort of like we have an army. We just need to organize and move forward. I think my role is going to become more of a training role. Even though I did a lot of training with you guys, it was almost more of a wake-up call that I was doing county by county. And I think it's going to be more hands-on work now. But anyway.
Well, empowering us, and you gave us the 7 steps that we can employ and put into place, and everyone find their position and be able to, take the helm. It's just, there it is. And it really does help to create that formatting. And so we know that we can be, increase our confidence and be able to speak up, stand up, and definitely show up. On Saturdays, we go to our overpasses and our corners, and we have our flags out there to share courage with everyone else. So there's private things that we do, and then there's public things that we do to be able to draw that encouragement together.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Give your husband Ron my best, and I hope he's doing well health-wise. I know he had some struggles last year, but he seems to be doing better.
Doing much better. Yeah, thank you for your prayers.
You're very welcome. Well, I'll see you. Bye. Oh, Patrick, you're back, buddy.
Well, thank you, Dr. Frank, for all that you've done. We've had you in Reading several times, Shasta County several times, and the people really loved what you had when you showed that bombshell of the voter rolls. It was unbelievable. It was clearly computer manipulation, and you've done great work on so many different things, and so the fight's just beginning.
Thank you very much, my brother, and don't hesitate to call if there's anything I can do to help.
All right, I'll call you from my jail cell.
All right, my friend.
Make me a pie with a file. Thank you, Dr. Frank.
Yep. Well, that's exciting news. The fight goes on. And as I said in my during the interview, I said, I think of this as we've just because we won the election, the presidential election, doesn't mean there wasn't fraud at the local level and in the down ballot. And there's a lot of work to do around the country. So let's not sit on our haunches right now. Let's step up. And The way I'm thinking of it in my mind, and I hope you are too, is we've taken Normandy. Think of it in a World War II analogy. We've won the beachhead, but now our work is just beginning. We've mustered an army. We've taken the beachhead, but now that army needs to organize, and we need to move on to Berlin. Or you could think of it like Iwo Jima, you know, those wonderful Marines who took that island at great cost. But then we had to move on to Tokyo. So that's where we're at right now. We can't just do like we did in 2016 and say, oh, you know, we got Trump in office. Now we can all go golf. Nope, it's not going to work. Well, that was not the way I originally planned to open the program, but that opportunity came up. So I want you guys to always know that I'm never going to waste your time. If I don't have anything to tell you, I'm just going to go away, because you guys, those of you who know me, know I could talk for hours and hours and hours. But my goal is to give you dense, good information or nothing. And so I've got some information for you. Now, a lot of you were watching me on election night. I was posting constantly. I was showing what the totals were. I was using the AP for that. Not that I necessarily believe it, but it was what was available and I could use it. And we were monitoring what was going on during the country. And one of the things that we noticed right away was that the number of ballots that Trump was getting was converging on what he'd received in the 2020 election, about 74 million. And election night, it was only around 71, 72, but I could tell, I graphed it out and looked at it. I was projecting it. It's going to finish right around 74 million. And I checked it again today. It's just under that right now. So that's going to be about the final number. So I'm just going to put up a graph here and talk about it with you for a minute. And I put this up on my social media, and I want to play a video of this for you, but I just wanted to introduce this graph. This is the one that was up on social media. And now I'm going to play a video that I also prepared today to help you to, let's see here. There we go. To help you to understand this a little better. Sometimes it helps to animate these. So what we've got is across the bottom. Just going to pause it right there. You notice you've got 1980 all the way up to 2024. This is the number of Republican ballots that were tallied in each election, each presidential election. So you notice back in about 1980, there was something like 45 million ballots cast. In 2004, it was a little over 60 million. And then, of course, in 2020, Trump had about 74 million. And you can see in 2024, all the way to the right, that it's about 73 million right there, but it's converging to about 74 million. So just look at that graph for a minute. And what does it look like to you? It looks up and down all over the place. It's not a consistent graph, is it? All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the Democrat ballots to that. And so here we go. This is the number of Democrats who voted. And I went ahead, and you can get this graph on my social media pages, but also this video is available on my YouTube channel as well, and so you can get it there. But you'll notice that if you look across, I've labeled it each election, so it helps you to identify each of the elections. But notice though that the Democrat number of ballots is not nearly as tumultuous as the red curves. And let's just, I put a line there for you to help you to see that. You look, you'll notice that the tops of the blue bars, which represent the number of ballots cast by Democrats, follows a trend, and it followed it very consistently from 1980 to 2000. And then you notice that it suddenly jumped up and then followed a new trend. There's a discontinuity there. And that's when, by the way, that's when HAVA was, 2002. That's when we added machines. So a lot of times people will say to me, well, gee, Dr. Frank, what did our elections look like before machines? Can you show a difference before and after? Well, there it is right there. That's a very simple way for you to see that the machines suddenly, by adding machines, we've suddenly increased the number of people who vote. Why would machines, how we count, why would that change what the count is? That doesn't make sense, does it? Not at all. So, but anyway, you can see there's a nice trend from 1980 to 2000, and then there's another nice trend from 2004 to 2024, except there are two exceptions there, you notice, Obama in 2008 and Biden in 2020. So it follows trends except for those two elections. And you'll notice that Obama had an extra 9 million ballots his first election that he didn't have his second election. And Biden had an extra 15 million ballots that Kamala was not able to acquire somehow. So in other words, out of all those years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 presidential elections, all of them except for two follow the trend with the Democrats. And the two are the most suspicious of any of the elections, the Obama first term and the Biden first term. And what's ironic about that 15 million, this is kind of a long story, but it's important that you realize, I'm a scientist, and what scientists do is we make predictions. And if the predictions come true, then we think, oh, we're onto something. And then it's called a hypothesis, and you do a test of the hypothesis. And if the hypothesis, if the test, which is called an experiment, if the experiment comes out the way you predict, you probably know what's going on. So let's make another prediction. And you just keep doing that process over and over again. That's called the scientific method. So in October of 2020, before the election, a month before, I had predicted that Trump was going to win in a landslide. It was going to be like 20-1 for Trump. And I was posting my graphs and my predictions online, and somebody posted a message. They said, well, gee, Dr. Frank, we hear there's going to be a lot of cheating in the election. If there's a lot of cheating, then, how can Trump win? And I said, don't worry about it. And I actually put this in writing. I said, don't worry about this. They'd have to stuff 15 million ballots in order to take this election from Trump. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. And so it's ironic that I said that a month before the election. And now it's doubly ironic that that's the 15 million that's missing from this election. So I sort of feel vindicated. I feel like that's a prediction. I had a hypothesis, and that hypothesis has been tested. So it adds weight to the fact that we think that there's a lot of stuffed ballots in 2020. Now, let me just continue the video for a little bit here. I'm walking you through this graph. You'll see. Let's see here. There we go. Now, you'll notice that Trump's turnouts in 2020 and 2024 were about the same, right around 74 million. This is really, really important point, because the GOP was running around telling everybody, we need to vote early. We got it to beat the Democrats. We have to vote early, and we have to go out there and we have to mine the voter rolls, and we have to register people to vote, and then we have to chase ballots and harvest ballots. I was telling everybody back in March, that is a failed strategy. I'm in writing, multiple presentations, dozens of counties around the country. I was telling people, this is not a good strategy. How did I know? Because I've run the numbers. Numbers don't lie. There aren't enough available. Republicans are already very consistent voters. And like typically in the 80s, if you're a registered Republican, most counties are voting in the 80% for registered Republicans. And you're not going to be able, you're dealing with a small margin. You're dealing with 20% there. And really that's 20% of half the population. So now you're down to 10%. And if you do a really good job harvesting those, you might get a few percent. So my phrase as I was going around the country was, the GOP strategy is not a good strategy for two reasons. The first reason is, even if you do a great job, you're only going to be able to increase it a few percent. Second of all, and this is the real issue for me, is if you're casting ballots early, you're telling the enemy how many ballots they need to stuff. You're giving away the reconnaissance. So the way I describe it, it's like, let's say you're in a war and you call the general on the opposing side and you say, by the way, general, tomorrow we're going to attack your left flank with 100 men with rifles and at 9:30 in the morning. Why would you tell your opponent what you're doing? You're giving away the reconnaissance necessary for them to do the cheat. So I was opposed to it on two major reasons. Three reasons. One is it's going to be a lot of effort put into something that has no effective, minimal effect. Two, you're giving the enemy help. And three, we should be voting on election day, and we should be encouraging people to vote on election day, because that's the direction we need to go back in to recover election integrity in this country. As long as we have election month instead of election day, the reason it's election day is because that's how you preserve integrity. The more time you have, the more opportunities you have for problems. So anyway, it's a big deal to me that Trump had the same amount of ballots in this election as he had in 2020. That tells you his followers are going to vote. Whether they vote early or on the election day, they're going to vote. So this whole idea of spending all the time early is the wrong strategy. What people should be doing is taking back control of their elections. And the way to do that is by using the 7 steps. And I've been teaching people all around the country how to do that. And so now that we're entering this next phase, now that we've got this beachhead, now that we're going to be pushing on to Berlin, I'm not selling myself here. I don't charge for my work. Those of you who I've worked with, I do this for no fee. So I'm happy to come in and help you learn how to take back control of your elections. At the beginning of this program, you saw me interviewing those people in Shasta. They are fighting that war. I think they're going to win that war because every time something bad happens there, they have egg on their face. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see their person get egg on their face. But anyway, so it's important to me that you know that Trump had the same number of ballots before and after. Now, on social media, I've been just buried with people saying, "Oh, Dr. Frank, it was a huge turnout. Oh, you should have seen it. It was massive." Well, no, it was exactly the same as 2020. So, no, I think you're accepting the propaganda. You're falling into the trap. And there's a narrative that is being foisted on you. And I'm trying to give you the facts. So when somebody says, "Oh, it was a huge turnout, that's why we won," wrong. It was not a huge turnout. It was the same turnout for Trump as last time. That's just a fact. Numbers don't lie. So then people say, well, how did Trump win then? What happened to those 15 million ballots that Harris had? Well, I think there's a couple of things going on here. We've already been confirming around the country, and you'll be hearing more about this in the coming weeks. There's a lot of cheating going on down ballot, not necessarily at the top, but to our huge advantage on the right, Kamala was a horrible candidate. She didn't bring out her own base. So there's only so much they can cheat. And I think they used everything they had, and they still were unable to get her base to turn out. So that's my working hypothesis right now, and maybe that'll change. Nice thing about it being a scientist is you don't have to be right. You just have to make predictions and then test them. And if you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, okay, you improve it. But that's where I'm at right now. All right, so going on here. So Trump had the same number of ballots in 2020 as he had in 2024. But you'll notice that Harris lost 50 million. So see, this is a really simple graph to understand once you see what's going on. And you're free to download it off my social media and show it to all your friends just to kind of set the record straight. Following the data is what I love doing because I like making my opinions based upon what the evidence is, not on my opinion or not somebody else or not some pundit. So that's the first big graph I put out just a couple of days ago. And yesterday, I worked on another graph, and I just want to summarize that with you. I was going to animate it today, but I got busy with stuff and I just didn't get to it. So I'm just going to put it up for you so you can see it. Now, what this graph is it's for across the bottom. You notice I've got all the states, and I included DC. So there's 51 states or district across the bottom there. And you'll notice that there are 3 bars for each state. Now, the leftmost bar for each state tells you the ratio of Trump to Biden votes in that state. So if you were just to go all the way to the right, say, look at Wyoming, all the way to the right, you'll notice that the first bar of the 3 bars is about 3.1. That means in 2020, Trump had a 3-to-1 ratio of ballots. So for every 3 ballots that went to Trump, 1 ballot went to Biden. So that's what happened in 2016 in Wyoming. In 2020, you notice that ratio went down dramatically. It went down about half of a fraction. So it's like 2.6 votes for Trump instead of 3.1 for every. So there's two ways that can happen. One, there can be a lower turnout for Trump, or there could be a higher turnout for Biden. And if we go back to that other graph, like I showed you, if we go back to this graph, let me bring it back up, put it back in here and take this out. If we put this, I'm sorry, it's playing here. Let's see here. Come here, you. There we go. Bring it in right to there. There we go. So no, his number went up from the 2016. You know, in 2016 he had just over 60 million, and in 2020 was over 70 million. So no, you can't say that he went down. He went up. But what happened was Biden went up even more. And that's, oops, that's the wrong graph. This is the one. There you go. So that second curve, so back over here all the way to the right there where Wyoming is 3 bars. The first bar shows that Trump to Biden ratio in the Trump to Hillary ratio in 2016 was 3.1. And then the Biden number increased, but so did the Trump. But the ratio decreased. So he went down. And then in 2024 is the third bar. And you can see it came back up a little bit. It came back up, so like about 2.7 or 2.8 to 1. So you can see the trend. Now I just want you to look across the tops of all these 3 bars all the way across. And you're going to notice, hey, Dr. Frank, those every state followed that same trend. How did that happen? Well, and that's very suspicious, isn't it? And that's why I've been suspecting that there's problems. Now, in my other presentations, and I didn't have a chance to prepare tonight, but I'll get it up in the next day or two. So look for it on my social media. You'll notice I do one at a time, and I can show you the trend moving with time. So I wanted you to see those 2 graphs so that you would know what's going on. Let's see if I had anything else. So I've been doing a lot of introspective lately. I mean, it makes sense. After spending 4 years solid on the road, where I'm just constantly waking people up, getting them started on the 7 steps. This is the 7 steps. Getting them started on that. You know, they gave me the nickname of the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity, right? Because I was going around the country, and we had tremendous success in California. Why? Because they're awake there, more awake there than most places. But traveling the country constantly like that, I've really got a good feeling for the whole country. And I learned a lot of lessons. I had some faulty assumptions, and I'm going to be collecting those assumptions and teaching you guys what some of those assumptions are. For example, one of the assumptions was I assumed that the GOP wanted Trump to win in 2020, and GOP is not who you think they are. That was quite an eye-opener for me. Another big thing is I had to learn that our senior officials are not what you think they are. And then another one was our legislatures. And so I'm going to go into that in more detail, and I'm going to show you evidence. But one dramatic piece of evidence that I can show you. Let me just bring this one up. It's right here. This shows you across the country, across the bottom, you'll notice, 0% to 100%. How does your senator, how do your congressmen, how consistently do they vote with the Constitution? If they're all the way to the right, then they're 100% consistent with the Constitution. If they're all the way to the left, they vote 100% against the Constitution, or they never vote in favor of the Constitution. Now, what I've done in this graph is I took these data from what's called the Freedom Index. You'll see that in the bottom right there of the graph, the freedomindex.org. And what you'll notice is that there's a lot of blue dots on the left. So in other words, they don't vote consistently with constitutional principles very much, do they? Well, the Republicans, the red dots, do vote more consistently with the Constitution for sure. But look how few of them vote 100% or even 90%. In other words, if you were to put this on a grading scale, there are only a few congressmen and senators in our country that are going to get an A. There are a few B's, but look at all the C's, D's, and F's. if you are relying on who we send to Washington to fix these problems, you got another thing coming. It ain't going to happen. Now, when I first put this graph together, I put it together inverted, and I labeled these. And so you notice you've got communists on the left, basically people who don't support the Constitution, communists disguised as Republicans there in the middle. We call those, rhinos. And then you have these would be the F minuses here, and these would be the Fs, and then this group would be the Bs and Cs, Republicans that with tainted oaths. They swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and they're not. So that's a huge deal. Now, I've done those graphs for every state in the country, and what I'll do is I'm going to do a podcast on those in a day or two. But in the meantime, you can go onto my Rumble channel and you can see where you can see those graphs that I've done for every state. And what you're going to be shocked. I mean, even Wyoming, the state that's the most conservative, the one that supports Trump more than anybody else. Look at this. They're the most MAGA all the way to the right there. They're the most MAGA of all the states. Wait till you see their graph that is analogous to this graph. They're full of rhinos as well. And so if you're waiting for your legislature to fix your problem, or you're waiting for the federal Congress to fix your problem, you're waiting for the wrong thing. Now, we have a huge advantage now that we have Trump in office. There's no question about that. It's nice to have a general at the helm who, and one of his campaign promises, remember he said, promises made, promises kept. One of his promises is he wants to go back to single-day voting, all paper ballots. So let's see if he can cause that to happen. But you got to realize he's only 1/3. There's other 2/3. So we're going to have to see how that goes. And if I was just going to be objective right now, I would say he ain't inaugurated yet. The election isn't certified yet. So even though there's a lot of optimism, and I feel very excited about what's happened, and I'm delighted that Trump won in 2024. I'm delighted about that. Fat lady hadn't sung yet. And it ain't over till it's over. And so I don't know what's in our future, but I do know one thing for sure. It's in our hands, the local hands. You just heard a great story from the Shasta County people. They've been fighting that battle for years. I fought in their foxholes with them. But look what they've been able to accomplish. And that's in California. If they can accomplish that in California, what's your excuse? Yeah, you guys need to embrace this. We need to remember that we're the government. We, the people, are the government, and it's up to us. Now, I've been mostly talking about politics, but I want to talk about something else. Just to kind of maybe wrap some of this up, and I want to have a chance to answer your questions. So, if you have any questions for me, so you hear this passage a lot, and I just wanted to talk with you about it for a minute. People talk about this all the time. They say, "Well, gee, Dr. Frank, 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land." And I believe that scripture, and I believe it's true about our country. And those of you who know me know I'm very concerned about the spiritual welfare of our country, because I feel like the political problems we have are really just an out problem of our spiritual problem. It's a symptom. So we need to deal with our spiritual issue. But you notice in this scripture, it says, if then. God's healing of our nation is conditional. Well, what are those conditions? Let's think about that for a minute. The passage says, if God's people will, 1, humble ourselves, 2, pray, 3, seek his face, 4, turn from our wicked ways, then God will hear from heaven, forgive our sin, and heal our land. In other words, it's conditional. This is an if-then proposition. So what the first thing, so let's think about it. It's sort of like if I say to my son, "Hey, Dad, can I have $20?" I'll say, "If you'll take out the garbage, then I'll give you the $20." Okay. All right. There's an if then. So what's the if? That's incumbent upon us. So if my people, so let's look at this. What's the first one? Humble ourselves. So we're supposed to humble ourselves. What does that mean? What does it mean to be humble? If God is asking us to be humble, what is humility? This is the first thing. God's got 4 conditions, and then you get 3 benefits. 4 conditions. If, then. So the first one is humility. So I've thought a lot about this, and this is what I think humility is. Humility is 1, knowing that God has created you for a purpose. 2, exploring and nurturing the gifts that God has equipped you with. 3, embracing and engaging the work he's planned for you. 4, trusting God instead of yourself to accomplish his purpose. And then step 5 is crediting God for the outcome. If you think about this, God is outside of time and space. Every gift you have is from him. If you know that God has created you for a purpose, step 1, then you know, step 2, that he must have given you gifts because he's created you for a purpose. So there must be gifts he's given you that you need to carry out. So what are those? You need to discover those in yourself. So for example, I'm a singer. Figaro. I like to sing. Okay. God made me a singer, so I should be singing. If you heard my yearning thing at the beginning of the program I played tonight, I wrote that music. I was a choir director for many years. Music is a gift I have. So I need to be using my gifts. Okay. I have the gift of gab, right? And you have to watch out for this guy. I'm always gabbing, right? So I have the gift of gab. I could go on for hours and hours and hours. Obviously, I like science. I'm good at science. I'm a famous scientist. I have 60 scientific peer-reviewed publications. So all these different talents that God has given me, I need to use. Now, I want to talk about humility for a second. So I'm a pretty smart guy, but I'm also 6'1". I had nothing to do with my height. God made me 6'1". God also gave me hands. He gave me feet. So he expects me to work and to walk. He gave me a brain. He expects me to think. So why am I going down this little alleyway? Because people might say to me, oh, Dr. Frank, you're so smart. And if I say to them, no, I'm not smart. I'm not smart. That would be false humility. True humility is recognizing who you truly are. God gave me a voice, expect me to sing. God gave me a brain, expect me to think. God gave me hands, expects me to work, gave me a mouth, and unfortunately, you have to listen to me talk. Okay, so the point is, false humility is actually kind of an insult. Yeah, God gave you these gifts. Oh, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. No, I'm not good at this. No, I'm not good at. No, find out what those gifts are that God has given you. Think about it. Think about what gifts has he got to explore. That's the second step. Explore your gifts and nurture the ones he's equipped you with you. Then you can embrace and engage the work he has planned for you. And how are you going to know what work he has planned for you? How do you know what God's will is for your life? Guess what? What gifts and circumstances has he put you in? When you know what gifts and circumstances he's put you in, then it's obvious. It's like, okay, there's the path. It's right there in front of you, and he gave you feet, so walk the path. So this is an amazing time in history. This, I think, is as pivotal as 1776. This is life or death for our country. It's an existential threat. And I think this is the key passage. This has got to be what we are focused on right now. We have to turn, we have to humble ourselves, we have to pray. Let's talk about that for a second. But let me come back to that. Seek his face. Let's talk about the seek his face. What does it mean to seek God's face? What you're doing is what is your purpose? What is your purpose in the world? What is your purpose in the universe? What is your purpose for me? Well, the best way to find out is to pray. That's just having a conversation with God. So in other words, we're going to humble ourselves. That is, we recognize the gifts we have, circumstances we're in. We pray. Hey, God, thank you for these gifts. Thank you for these circumstances. What purpose do you have for me? See how this works? Humble ourselves, pray, seek his face. Then we have to turn from our wicked ways. And I don't want to get into that too much in this program, but I want to come back to it in a future program. Our country is pretty wicked right now. And Benjamin Franklin said, if we don't have virtue, we will not be able to keep our republic. Only virtuous people are capable of freedom, he said. And I believe he's right. So we have some cleaning up to do too. We've got human trafficking, we've got drug trafficking, we got dirty borders. We got to clean up our country as well. We got to clean up our hearts spiritually. We got to clean up a lot. So we've got to turn from our wicked ways as well. And I think all of that, I think turning from our wicked ways will be a natural outcome if we will humble ourselves and pray and seek God's purpose in our life. Then we'll naturally clean up the mess in our life. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of summarize that a little bit with you, because I feel like this is, I always talk about David and Goliath, and Goliath wasn't the problem. Really, the children of Israel were the problem. They weren't dealing with the problem, but Goliath is the elephant in the room, so we had to deal with that. David and Goliath story. I don't want to go into that right now, but you know the story. All right, so before I wrap this up, I'm going to try to keep these short so people want to listen to them. I'm wondering if you guys have any questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the comment section, and I'm going to look at this. And I'm just going to start at the top and just kind of scroll down here for a little bit here. It says here, yeah, way to go, California. Han, they're in LA. Let's see. I'm trying to get up to the top. Wow, a lot of comments. Thank you, guys. Okay, let me just see if you had questions. Dr. Frank talks about you all over the nation. That's funny. Good. It's a good talk. Let's see here. Yes, Laura Hobbs is the gal in Shasta County who I got an endorsement for her from Mr. Lindell as well. And he just called me earlier today. He's got something he wants us to do together. I'll keep you guys up to date on that. Tom Hurdle. Oh, yeah, he's from Georgia. Hey, Thomas, if you're out there, good to see you. All right, here's somebody saying the machines flip votes in every county. My report shows it. I'd like to see that report. I don't doubt that there's flipping of ballots going on, but I always like to mention to people, you remember that graph that from 2020, it went up like this in Michigan, and then it kind of leveled off, and then right at 11 o'clock at night, it went blink, and then went on. That's not flipping of ballots. That's injection of ballots. And as long as people keep thinking that the main steal is flipping of ballots, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. Because I always tell people, doesn't matter how many times you count the cash in the register. What matters is how many of the bills are counterfeit. What happens is people think that the way to audit their elections, because they think ballots are being flipped, they think the way to audit their elections is to do recounts. Now, I'm not against recounts, but I only support them in specific situations. So, for example, tonight's program, we brought the Shasta people in. They have direct evidence. They got problems. They need to do a recount, a hand count, period. They need to do that. But if you inject a bunch of ballots, doesn't matter if you recount them, right? You recount the same counterfeit ballots over and over again. The audit is not the audit of the machines. The audit needs to be an audit of the voters. And that's especially a problem in states like Oregon, where they mail ballots to everybody in their dirty voter rolls. Who's this? And yes, very appreciative, Patrick Jones. Yes, he's a true tough-skinned patriot. I like Patrick too. He's a great guy. All right, nobody looks at the audit logs. Yes, that's true. In fact, it's hard to get them. Many states refuse to give them to the people. All right, here's the question. Dr. Frank, where's the cheat this time? Yes. Where there's 20 million votes, right? Exactly. I think I dealt with that a little bit, but that's going to be borne out. I think it's a mistake that people make. They think of only thinking about Trump and Hillary, or Trump and Biden, or Trump and Kamala. They're always at the top of the ticket. The most important races might be your school board race, might be your sheriff race, might be your county supervisor race, or your county commissioner's races. Those are where the real war is. Now, in 2006, George Soros announced what's called the Secretary of State Project. And he said he was going to own, it's right on TV, you can find it on YouTube. You can find his interview. He said he was going to own every Secretary of State by 2020. So that's not the top of the ticket. And how is he going to end up owning that? What about the abortion issue? We had 10 states with issues this time around, and 7 of them lost. How can Trump win in such a big landslide and you lose that issue? There's a lot of cheating down ballot. I remember in 2020 here in Ohio, where I'm from, Trump won in Ohio by an 8.5% margin. I actually think it was closer to 16%. And that's a long story, but I don't get into it right now. But I actually think so. In other words, there was about 8% stuffed. Trump still won, but there's a lot of stuffing. Well, guess what? We lost 12 of our most conservative judges in the state of Ohio in that one election. So Soros announced the Secretary of State project in 2006, 2012-ish, I think it was. He announced the AG project. 2015 and 16, somewhere in there, he announced that they were going to take over all the sheriffs and all the school boards. Okay, so in other words, we're all focused on the top of the ticket, but you got to realize there's cheating down ballot as well, and that's super important. Okay, I think I answered that question enough. All right, they are putting mRNA vax in your food. You need to do this right now. I happen to be, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but very experienced with mRNA technology because I did some consulting, and that's scary stuff. Who's this? Oh, thank you, Patty. Yes. Dr. Frank, where's the cheat? Oh, I already answered that. Okay, here we go. They're putting mRNA. Oh, we already got this. Let's see here. Key point, freedom to assemble. Mama Lana. We need to take back our country via our counties and use what used to be townships. I agree. This book, Colonel Mills, he says, take back your county and the country will follow. Or what does General Flynn say? Local action, national impact. The way we're going to change the country is not from the top down, it's locally. And thank you for bringing up the freedom to assemble. That's a huge deal because that's in the First Amendment, right? We have 5 in the First Amendment, and the freedom to peaceably assemble is the 4th listed in that First Amendment. Very important. Good point. Thank you for making that. All right, here we go. Who's next here? All right, thumbs up. Very good. Thank you, Angela. Let's see here. Look, it didn't even matter. Yes. All right. Pastor Hans in LA. I got to talk at his church recently. I did a talk on science and faith. It was a lot of fun. I sure did enjoy that. I need to put one of those pictures up here, Han. Pastor Han, he's a good guy. He's Shasta's on the front line in a lot of ways, but so is Han. He's in LA right there on those front lines. That's a big deal. All right, let's see how I'm doing on questions here. The Amish were important in the election for PA and registered this year. Yeah, they came out in 2020 as well. In fact, that's where I got my saying, vote Amish. I've been telling everybody, vote Amish, all paper, no machines. And I got that idea because in Ohio, 60,000 Amish people turned out for the first time to vote. It was amazing. And why did they turn out? Because Governor DeWine was imposing COVID restrictions on them. All right, Diego, California. Yes. All right, who's this here? I wonder if the pissed off Amish are more frightened to PA. Yes, I think that's a good point. I'll give you that one. All right, let's see here. Okay. Is the GOP different under Laura Trump? All right, so this is my opinion. My opinion after spending years on the road and seeing the GOP operate around the country. I think you need to realize that the GOP and the RNC is not about winning elections. They are about maintaining their own infrastructure, maintaining their own control and influence and finances. For example, one of the reasons why they were telling you to vote early, if you go up to somebody in the GOP and you say, why do you want us to vote early? They don't say, oh, because it's how you preserve election integrity. What they say is, we need you to vote early because it saves us money. Because then we don't have to knock on your door. We don't have to call. We don't have to send a flyer. It's all about money and infrastructure. The GOP, the RNC are not our friends. And I can tell you a lot of stories. And I'm not saying that I don't like Laura. I haven't met her in person. One of my personal lessons that I've learned over the last couple of years is I withhold my opinion until I meet somebody in person. So, for example, I've spent a lot of time with Mike Lindell. I can vouch for him. I know in my soul he's a good guy. I can vouch for him. I can tell you, and you can trust me. He's a good guy. I've spent a lot of time with General Flynn. Good guy. Trust him. People that I've been close with. I know, and I've had meals with Donald Trump, and he is a great guy. In fact, he's in private, he's more of a teddy bear. In public, he's a little more of a New York a-hole. He's got this brash kind of attitude about him. But in private, he's really quite a sweetheart, and he asks you questions and he listens. So once you know this about people, then you can form an informed opinion. Like Eric Trump, his son. I'm a huge fan of Eric. What a doll. I spent a whole afternoon with him and my daughter Nellie, who has Down syndrome, and they played patty cake on the lawn. So my point is, when you meet these people, then you have a good sense of who they are, and you can trust them. I haven't met Laura yet, so I don't know. But my initial impression is not very favorable, because what's the first thing that did? The GOP wasn't working for election integrity. The RNC wasn't either. So I'm not sure. This too big to rig thing. Yeah, let's get a big turnout. How did that work out for you? How did the red wave work out for you? Huh? Didn't work out, did it? In other words, all these things that the GOP and the RNC are telling you to do are not delivering. How did we win? Trump delivered, and Kamala didn't. And there was some cheating still, but we'll get into that more in coming days. I don't like to talk about things I don't have direct evidence for. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Well, here, Junkyard Dog agrees. The GOP will act different in public, but behind closed doors, they're the same snakes as the DNC. Yeah, I have run into that. Yeah, the California GOP is one of the worst in the country. But by the way, this is a multi-front war. Fix your GOP. A lot of states are making good progress. It's called the Precinct Project. Dan Schultz started it a couple of years ago. The GOP has been doing great reform. There's a gal in Southern Kentucky, Ellen Aldrich, amazing lady. She's been leading a huge reform effort in Kentucky as well. So let's fix. But notice that that's not a top-down fix. That's a bottom-up fix. There's a huge number of precinct captains that are vacant. And so when you don't volunteer at your local level to serve the party, then that concentrates power in the top. Whereas if you'll fill all those vacancies at the precinct level, then you can take over your party. So that's what's going on. Yeah, you have Newscomb there. Yes. All right. Let's see here. Yes. All right. Let's see here. Han again, Pastor Han, great guy. Let's see here. Hit the like button. Hansel says, you're preaching my sermon for Sunday, Dr. Frank. Well, Han, I think that there's a move of the Holy Spirit going on around the country, so we ought to be in sync. That's a good deal. All right. Here's a question. I'm worried about Nevada and Arizona. Yeah, I noticed earlier today that they were still counting. They're taking a very long time to count. Why is it taking so long? So I've got boots on the ground in both places, and Arizona is a disaster. And I tell you what I'm going to do to answer your question rather than speculate. I'm going to bring in boots on the ground. We'll do an interview of her from Arizona. We'll find out what's going on. How about if I set that up? I'll let you guys know in the very near future. Thank you for that question, Craig. Of course, the longer it takes to count, the more chance you have for shenanigans. Case in point, Shasta County that I just talked about. Shasta County, look at this, they're having to recount everything. In fact, they're reprinting their ballots. And look, that opens up all these opportunities for shenanigans. All right. You've seen the report. I gave it to you in Missouri and then again in Shasta. Okay, sorry about that. You have to bring it to my attention again. All right. Let's see here. By the way, when somebody says that they have evidence, I want you to think about something. So when I had evidence in Pennsylvania, I did an experiment, right? Because in the scientific method, you have a hypothesis and then you test it. So my hypothesis was, gee, all my math predicts that this is not normal. In fact, my math is predicting that there are a bunch of voters who are not real voters who are voting. So let's go prove that. So the original team that I worked with in Pennsylvania back in December of 2020, we had 100 volunteers who knocked on doors for 3 days. And we found exactly, I predicted we'd find 30% of the doors would have a non-real voter. In the list they gave me, we found 31.5%. So you have to confirm it. So when people come to me and they give me statistical evidence, I say, that's fine. I'm good with that. But you shouldn't go public with it until you've tested it. You have to prove, because the problem with math and statistics is you can always have ex post facto explanations. You have to make a prediction and then test it. So that's just the scientific method. All right. John Matthews. Hey, John Matthews, Arkansas. He's a good, one of my mentors. You know, that's one of the best things about being on the road for these years is I've met some really high quality people. And John Matthews is probably one of the most effective grassroots people I've met. He trained me. He taught me a lot of things. One of the things that, in fact, it's even affected some of the things I've written, where he says, when you're doing with grassroots, keep the main thing the main thing. And boy, oh boy, was he right. Because as I train teams around the country, they get so easily distracted on other courses. You know, I have teams that are going in there doing election integrity. I call them back in a month later, and what are they doing? They're ballot chasing. What are you doing? Oh, the GOP says we're supposed to ballot chase. Well, that isn't the plan we made. Why are you doing that? Or in Ohio, we had teams set up to do election integrity. I call them back a month later. What are they doing? They're trying to clean the voter rolls. Didn't I explain to you that cleaning the voter rolls is a waste of time? In other words, keep the main thing the main thing. Anyway, random. Where do I think the 15 million ballot went? Could it be the actual turnout versus stuff ballots? Yes, that's exactly what I think it is, John. And as more evidence comes to light, we're going to nail that down. But I gave you pretty good circumstantial evidence for that tonight. Any chance y'all could get Trump to open an election integrity task force? As a matter of fact, I think we're working on something like that. And thank you for the compliment, Trev. I would love to do that. I've even discussions have already started in that category. I would like to have the opportunity. You know, you have to resist. Anytime somebody gets power, it can be abused. So you have to resist the urge to give the federal government all kinds of power. I think that's a huge mistake. You know, I love what General Flynn says. He says, first thing he would do is get rid of the Department of Education. Yeah, go back to the states. All right. But anyway, do we need a Department of Elections? I don't know if I want to do that. However, I would be willing to commit part of my life, a good chunk, several years if necessary, maybe the next 4. I'd be willing to work on teams where we went around state to state. But what would make it so much more effective now that we have the head man in town would have a little authority where we could have access to any records we needed. And we might need to have classifications or whatnot to make that happen, because a lot of these systems work on classified networks. So it's not a trivial thing, but give me a subpoena authority and give me some power. And I would use it for a short period of time. But like I said, you give people power, it's dangerous. I don't even trust myself with that. So you got to be careful. Thank you for that suggestion. Of course, that's in the works. Okay. Steve Garvey lost votes in every county for a total of 150,000 votes between partial term and full. Adam Schiff gained votes in every county. Isn't that interesting? Very interesting. So now you'd have to prove, if that's the claim, you'd have to prove that's just a statistical claim. And so when you have a statistical claim, you then have to back it up with hard evidence. So statistics are good. Statistics are only evidence. Statistics are not proof. Statistics is the smoke that leads to the fire. So you use the stats to do the follow-up. All right, here we go. Let's see, who else have we got? Do you think Mike Rogers' loss in Michigan Senate involved cheating? You think? I would have to look carefully at the numbers, but my initial reaction is Michigan has got a lot of cheating. We've got a person on that right now, Patrick Kolbeck, is working on that. They had 83,000 duplicate voters in the rolls. That's the same person with 2 different voter IDs. And something like 25,000 of them actually voted duplicates. So we'd have to check whether or not those specific ballots are part of his loss or not. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised. Hey, Tanya. I love it that Dr. Frank is doing another live. It feels so retro, back to crazy COVID days. Yes, it does. In fact, I was working on those files today because I had put all this stuff to bed while I was on the road. I hope to keep this going up regularly. One of the things that's been a challenge for me is to get the word out and answer everybody's questions, and to do it one at a time is pretty slow. So I'm good. Thank you, Dr. Frank, for your God-given talents. Amen. See, that's my sermon. You're definitely born for such a time as this. That's the reference to Esther in the Bible. Remember Esther, and the Jewish festival Purim is all about that. And the thing I really love, people always, you hear that phrase a lot, for such a time as this, for such a time as this, but my favorite part of that story is that Esther was beautiful. She was so beautiful that the king took her in as his wife. And that is how she was able to influence the king and able to save the nation of Israel. So when I say to you, I'm 6'1", I had nothing to do with that, I'm basically alluding to that story. God made her beautiful. So she can't go, well, look how great I am, I saved the country. Look how beautiful I made myself. She can't say that. God made her that way. God put her in that place. God arranged the circumstances. So for such a time as this. But you notice for such a time as this, there was a lot of preparation that went into that. So that's my favorite. Thank you for that comment, though. I appreciate it. All right, let's see. What does this say? Need to look for opportunities to plant 7 separate groups in our neighboring counties. Yes. That looks like my Missouri friend potentially there. A bunch of zeros. Let's see here. What is this? Doc, any thoughts on where the 16 million ballots went? Okay, I'm getting this question a lot. I think I answered it two ways. My working hypothesis right now is that Kamala was a horrible candidate. So let's say you cheat 15 million, but she lost 15 million. How do you find another 15 million? Because she was such a horrible candidate. So that's my working hypothesis. All right. I haven't done, you've seen the analyses I've done. I haven't done a lot of the detail. So you'll be seeing all these sort of analyses coming out. Isn't it fun that all these people now are re-engaging the election process and everybody's analyzing it, tearing it apart? Yes, that's what we were supposed to be doing. The last Texas GOP chair got caught voting for DeSantis in the primary after some folks figured out how to get him in just the primary ballots. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you're not supposed to know how people vote, but guess what? That's the problem with electronic machines. Dr. Frank, can you elaborate on what's happening with my friend Tina? What can we do besides pray? Can we get organized and get Megyn Kelly, Steve Bannon, Tucker to help us overturn this life sentence? Yeah. Now, I talked about Tina the other night on my other live. You can go there. I think the best thing you can do to help Tina, she has a Give, Send, Go. You can give money. And that's important because she needs money to buy the time that she gets to broadcast. She gets 30 minutes a day on her iPad to talk to the outside world. So you can donate to her. Please do that. And I put the links up the other day. I don't have them handy right now. I wish I had them handy right now for that. But she also has a program called The Truth Matters. And I guest hosted that the other day. And my point to you is the way you can help her is donate money to her, help her so she can pay for her attorneys and pay for her appeals and all this other stuff that's going on, and that she can pay to communicate to the real world. I played a video the other day, like a 10-minute video. I could replay it right now. Maybe we'll finish with that at the end of the program. I'll play that out at the end before I close it off. She was in pretty good spirits, and she'd been there a month, and she looked pretty good. And I think she's glad that the people on the outside are listening to her. So that was the second thing. So the first thing is give her some money so she can pay for that stuff, and she can pay for attorneys and whatnot. The second thing is listen to her program. Be aware of what's going on with her. And then as this public movement grows, somebody said today, hey, can we get President Trump to pardon her? I would love that to happen. So, just keep it in the public discussion. Bring it up everywhere. Basically, she's a prisoner of war. And the prosecuting attorney said it overtly. He said, we're making an example out of her so that no other clerk in the country will want to make these backups. Basically scaring all the other clerks into compliance. So yes, pray. So I guess reiterate your answer, your good question. Thank you for that question. Gosh, I love Tina. I sort of, I've been involved with her situation from the very beginning, from its inception. I'm the one who, showed her the fraud, convinced her to get backups, and made all the connections so she could get those. And then we brought her to the cyber symposium to rescue her from the raids that she was undergoing. And I made a lot of those connections for her. So I've been involved from the very beginning, and I testified at her sentencing. If you heard that, it's about a 10 minutes. You can watch that on my YouTube channel if you want to see my 10-minute summary of that. So anyway, I think, give her money, pray for her, of course, be aware, bring her up, keep her in the public dialogue. The best way to get her out is to keep her in the public dialogue. Now everybody's saying, well, gee, can't Trump just pardon her? Well, I'd like her to, but Trump has limited power. He can't do, and that's a state case. And by the way, there are things he can do is he can appoint health directors. So, for example, we're going to have a new health director. And my friend Candace Keller put this up today. I just been laughing about it all day. Yeah, I think which one of those looks healthier to you? I think I'm looking forward to a new health director. All right, let's see here. What did I leave? Tina. I'm questioning if ballots mailed in randomly. Why would it seem like there's a pattern if the numbers of rejects in the batch? Bev. I'm questioning if ballots being mailed in randomly. So I'm trying to dissecting this question. If the ballots are being mailed in randomly, why would it seem like there's a pattern in the numbers of the rejects of the batch? Yeah, good question. Maybe it's something to do with the way the machine is reading them in. I think she's referring to I think that's Bev from Shasta asking that. Yeah, I'm not sure there is a pattern, but Patrick said that about 1 in every 3rd ballot was not being read properly. I'm not sure that's a pattern. It might just be a failure rate. Will you have a class on how to check if our local candidates have fraud in the elections? Absolutely. And one of the things I've been doing, I've been telling everybody, during the election, the most important thing you could do is every day download the list of who voted that day and make sure that they're real voters. That's the most important thing. Right now, the most important thing you can do is to observe every bit of the process you can. And the minute that the election is certified, you need to get a list of everybody who voted in your election. So before we go into what to do with it, right now you need to be observing and gathering data. Everything you can watch. Like Patrick Jones. He went up, he just went up to observe and look what he saw. So make sure you're observing and make sure you're downloading the list every day of who's voted. And if you can't get it individually as the citizens, candidates have the right to that. So there you go. All right. Yes. It looks like I'm getting some spam here. Sorry about that. Yeah. Trav agrees with my point. I don't think that we should have a permanent czar of elections. That would be a mistake. Those bureaucracies end up getting corrupted eventually. Tanya says she feels like Trump won way bigger than it looks like. That's possible. There could be voter suppression, ballot suppression. I am a scientist, and so I try to base my conclusions on what the data say. And right now the data say he got the same turnout this time as he got last time. So the simplest explanation is America loves him and voted for him about the same amount. But I'm willing to change my mind. And I'm my ears are open. Illinois, New York, and many other blue states moved to the right by large margins. These trends did not carry over into the swing states. Could that indicate cheating? Move to the right. They moved to the right. Well, when you say they moved to the right, okay, this is an important point. if you watch the media, what they'll tell you is, oh, the margins were 3%. Oh, the margins were 6%. Oh, the margins increased. The margins decreased. Stop listening to those. Why? Because those numbers have a denominator. If the denominator is the number of people who voted, and the numerator is how many it changes, that controls your margin. And if you're taking out 15 million ballots that weren't stuffed, it changes the denominator. So those margins will appear different. Look at the absolute numbers. Compare the absolute numbers. Like, for example, they'll say, well, Trump won by such and such percent over Kamala. Yeah, but he has the same number of ballots as last time. Look at the absolute numbers. Percentages, they hide information. It's the easiest way to cheat. Easiest way to cheat with hey, there's somebody. TinaPeters.us. Yes, that's a great way. Thank you for posting that link. That's a way to follow up on Tina. Yes, I heard Trump cannot pardon Tina because it's a state case, not a federal case. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and when I try to make logical assumptions about the law, I'm often wrong. So, for example, I was telling everybody I didn't think that Tina Peters' case was going to go to trial because there's no way they would let it go to trial, because then we'd be able to put in all this evidence. For example, that all of our machines have modems in it, which makes those machines uncertifiable for federal elections. So I was assuming they would never let it go to trial. Well, that shows you what me not being a lawyer is. What happened was pre-trial, they ruled out all the evidence like that. And so when it came to trial, it was all one-sided, and they'd basically taken out all the exculpatory evidence. So that's an example of me not having any experience in the law. I'm a scientist, not a lawyer. So I would think that I know it for a fact because I've sat and had lunch with her attorney, and we talked this out. He says the appeal process is 2 to 3 years. And I don't think we want Tina to be in prison for 2 to 3 years. I think Trump. So this is what I'm learning. I'm learning to be a politician. I'm learning to think in a different way than I used to think. Politics isn't about what's right and wrong. The law isn't about what's right and wrong. It's about power and influence. And with the right pressure in the right places, I bet you that Trump can get her out. But I'm not sure it's going to be by a pardon, because I think there's a technicality there. And I think that's what this is about. I think it's going to come down to, he'll have the goods on somebody, or he'll be able to pressure somebody. Hey, do you want to take this office? Well, then you're going to need to arrange for that. So I think it's going to be more about power and influence than it's going to be about a legal case. In Clackamas, Oregon. Oh, yeah, I was up there. I like you guys up there. I declare, cute name. Been observing the CEO and with mail-in voting and ballot harvesting. We believe there's a possible chain of custody violation. Dr. Friend has sent an email to you on an audit. Okay, good. Definitely be documenting. This is what I was saying before. Document everything that's going on. And what you don't want to do is make frivolous claims. It just makes us all look stupid. What matters is collect your evidence now, then let's firm it up, and then go forward with it. All right, here we go. Why could Arizona voters vote for Gallegos for Senate, but not Harris for president? Oh, very interesting. What did I say a minute ago? I think there's down ballot manipulation. That's one way. An example of suppression. Wait a minute. Junkyard Dog. This is my Arkansas buddy. Our county clerk office shut down on election day, was sending votes to vote centers. It was storming out. How many went? Yes, that'd be an example of voter suppression. Fox is bringing Shirley Cook on to explain how early voting and harvesting elected Trump. Yep. Yeah, I've met those guys, and I'm not impressed with them. Sorry. Yes. All right. Well, that was a pretty fun night. And you can tell I'm new at this. Well, I shouldn't say new at it, but I'm going to get better at this. You can tell I've worked up some graphics, some things to help us enjoy it. There's to me, it's important that there's humor. When you're dealing with serious subjects, you've got to have some humor. It's very important. There's something about, I'm a teacher. And so I've learned over the years that when I'm teaching, that if you include humor, your students learn better. So I like throwing in humor now and then. You've noticed that, hopefully. And so how about now I've got this funny video I was going to play earlier, and I won't do it now because I said I was going to finish out with the Tina Peters thing. I'll do the it's a funny video. I'll do it later. But I think what I'm going to do, unless there are no more questions, let me see if there's any more questions. Here we go. Curly Bill says, I think the margin question was about New York State, saw 44% more than in 2020. Did you address that? You just used a percent. That's my point. Why are you using a percent? I want to hear the absolute numbers. Don't use percentages. Percentages are a derived number, not a fundamental number. Use the fundamental numbers. Give our love to Nellie. Yeah, Nellie went to bed around 10. That's why I set this up at 9:30, so I wouldn't take as much family time. But Nellie's been fun down here in my basement. She'll come over all the time. So maybe one of these streams, I'll have her come over one of these times and say hi to you guys. She's a true joy. Did you mean you're not impressed with Turning Point? That's what I meant. I flew out to Vegas in February for their big conference and spoke at their conference and met with their people. And I'm not impressed. I'm sorry. But I'm not. I think they have the wrong priorities. I have a rule. You can hear me struggling with it. My rule is we're in a war. And when you're in a war, you don't, if someone's gun is aimed at the enemy, you shouldn't be shooting at them. And so I don't like shooting at people whose guns are aimed at the enemy. But that doesn't mean I'm going to get in a foxhole with them. And that doesn't mean I'm going to invite them into my foxhole. So I'd rather not say too much more about that. But I'm not impressed. They had the wrong strategy. And I think I just proved they had the wrong strategy. So there you go. I'm just saying I'm a friend. She saved my wife. Thank you. Yes. I got to quit clicking on these. I got to quit clicking on these spam emails. Yes, Kirk sold out. He's become a Jew operative. Thank you. That's coming from somebody who's really good at the grassroots as well. I 100% agree with that. I read his book, How We Win. It's a short book, 70 or 80 pages, and I really liked it. I learned a lot. It was a good book. And I read it before I went out to meet him because I always like to read people's books before I meet them because I feel like I have a jump start on our conversation. It was not what I expected to find. So I'm a little disappointed. But I'm not shooting my gun at him. All right. The Colorado Secretary of State could be prosecuted in a federal case for deleting data and other federal crimes, and then the evidence found in May 2021 could be used in the case, and then Tina's conviction could be addressed. I like that idea. I especially, and I mentioned this the other night, that the Secretary of State accidentally released all the passwords, well, at least half of the passwords for the counties in the state for the tabulating machines. So anybody who had those could have cheated, and I made a big deal out of it the other day. I in my last podcast, I talked about that a lot. All right. So they shouldn't have chased ballots. All right. Let me just address this. So you have to think of this, that we're at war, because we are. It's a 5th generation war. They're taking over our countries. So imagine we're in the war against Germany, and it's the Second World War. Okay. And we just took Normandy Beach. All right. Now, there might be a little village over on the right. You could say, well, it sure would be nice to take that village. Let's go take that village. But to do that, you're going to have to divert resources from the real war. That's the way I think about chasing ballots. I ran all the numbers, and I told everybody in March that if they do a really good job chasing ballots, they might get 2 to 3% increase in turnout. Well, guess what? Last I checked, Trump still has fewer ballots than last time, but it's close. Let's just say round numbers. it's the same number. He got the same number of ballots this time as he got last time. Last time, we didn't chase ballots. So if you want to have a control, I realize it's not a perfect experiment, but in a controlled experiment, you try to control all the variables and have just one thing change. So if we ran 2 elections and we had a control and the only thing different in the 2 elections was that we were chased or didn't chase, then we could nail it down for sure. But his turnout didn't increase. It's the same. So I think it's a mistake to say that the chasing ballots fixed it. The overspray, which is blamed for the rejection of ballots when tabulating, then goes to duplications. A batch of 50 or 67 seem to occur frequently. Okay. That's a possibility. She's talking about in Shasta County. In Shasta County, they're having a big problem because the barcodes printed on the ballots were, after the barcode was printed on, there was an overspray to protect them from smudging. Too much overspray is put on and it's prevented those ballots from being scanned. So what they've done is they brought in other machines and they're trying to rescan all those ballots with a different machine that can read through that overspray, but it's producing new ballots from the old ballots. And people that have been observing that, I've noticed that about 1 in every 3 ballots, Patrick was saying, he says you could stand there and watch. About 1 in every 3 ballots is what he said. Bev says it's less than that. About 1 in every 3 or 1 in every 4 ballots was did not match what was on the previous ballot, and the person who was doing the scanning was having to go back and repair them. So, that could just simply be the statistics of the overspray. We don't know. You have to have more data before you're going to be able to nail that down. Yes, Charlie Kirk used to lean more libertarian, but now he's got power and money and influence, so that's what he's using. Yes, the passwords. Yes. You're talking about the passwords in Colorado, yes. Yes. All they did was replace ballots not cast by self-righteous no-Trumpers. They did not increase anything. Yeah. See why I like John? He just tells you right out. Okay. Well, I think I've got all the questions. Let me just put out an invitation. So, Bev, for example, you've been making several comments about the situation in Shasta, and that's why I had Patrick and Patty on tonight. If anybody out there, and this is an open invitation, if anybody out there has information they think that would be good to promote, that's what I'm here for, and I'd love to look at it. You notice that I have my scientific hat on, and I'm pretty critical of people's data until we've gone through all of the steps. And the reason, it's my scientific training. It's a scientific discipline. If you don't stick with the data, and my professor always used to say, and it was such a very wise thing, he says, you're only allowed to go one hypothesis beyond the data, and then you have to test that hypothesis before you can take another step. And the reason is because there's too many permutations, too many possible explanations for things. And if you get too far away from the data, then you can easily convince yourself one thing or another. And, the reason that scientists use controls and experiments is not because they're worried about the experiment. The reason they use controls and experiments is to protect the experiment from them. Because we all have biases. We all, like, for example, I'm pre-biased. I know there's tons of fraud in these elections. So my eyes are going to be naturally looking for fraud, and I'm going to see more fraud than there is naturally because of my pre-bias. So therefore, I have to put all these little steps in place, all these little barriers to prevent me from doing that. So I'm not going to allow myself to make X conclusion until I've done that experiment that confirms that. And then what's the next hypothesis, and what's the experiment that confirms it? So I forced myself through that discipline. Forgive me, I'm a PhD scientist. That's what it means. Philosophy doctorate in science means that I understand the philosophy of science, and that's what I do. Lexi, thank you, Dr. Frank. We love and appreciate the work you're doing. Well, thank you very much. I feel like I'm in the groove that God called me to. So I appreciate that you noticed that. All right. Anybody else before I go? Oh, I remember I got distracted. Yes, I was making an open invitation. If any of you want to attend, be on the podcast and send me a note and say, hey, Dr. Frank, I want 5 minutes on your podcast to talk about XYZ or whatever. I'm happy to promote you. All right. We already did that one. All right. So let's see. I was wrapping it up. I'll tell you what, I'm going to play my short blurb of Tina Peters in case you didn't get it the other night. It's her first broadcast from prison. And then I'll close it out with that. And let me just find that real quickly here. There it is. That's my Tina Peters testimony. Since I changed my strategy, forgive me for a second. I have to look this up. It is right. I'm almost there. You know, I don't have a producer like these big fancy guys. I have to do this all myself. Well, what happened to it? There it is. There it is. First clip from jail. All right, I'm going to finish with this.
All right, how much time do I have you for?
Till 4:30 or whenever the food comes. So it'll, I'll see it come in from here. So
through this. First of all,
okay.
I think this is probably the first time anyone's have seen you through this process. So
yes,
give everyone a message on how you're doing right now.
Okay. All right. Well, originally it was obvious that people had preconceived ideas about me in here, and it was obvious too that the judge. I know you've played on your show, and it's on my. I believe it's on my X. The vile things that the judge said. Basically, nothing about why I shouldn't be released on bond, but because I've been on bond for 2 years. But because of my First Amendment right to free speech, he objected to what I was saying out there on these kind of shows and others. And, you know, that's why my show is called The Truth Matters, Joe. You know that.
I do.
You know, I'm going to tell the truth. So that.
The reason they had her under house arrest for a whole year is she couldn't leave the state. It's because they didn't want her out promoting this story. And the reason that the judge put her in prison is to try to shut her up. Well, I'm not sure that's going to work.
That's why I'm here. But at first there were things like they wanted me to take a TB test. Well, first they kept me in holding under bright.
By the way, to set context, she's been in jail. This is not prison. She's in county jail, and she's been there for about a month at this point.
Lights 24/7 in a room with 12 women. We're talking the mats on the concrete floor are touching each other, and a toilet, so no privacy whatsoever. And then they had me there on a hold for a mental health hold and a program hold. The deputy told me he hadn't seen a program hold in 15 years, since he's been here in 15 years. And what the program hold, I wasn't allowed to know what that was until after the weekend. So I came in on Thursday right from court down to here, was processed.
She's saying program hold. In other words, they didn't know where they were going to place her, whether it was going to be like solitary or protective custody or the general or that sort of thing. So it doesn't come through. It sounds like she's saying program hold, but it's program hold because they didn't know where to put her at first. There we go.
Given clothes, put in a cell, and there for 5 days. So Friday, they wouldn't tell me while I was on a program hold why they weren't putting me in GP, which is general population. I finally found out on Monday that the program hold was because they were trying to decide whether I was going to go in minimum.
Whoops. Sorry about that.
Medium and maximum, the shoe. And I said, you're kidding me. I said, you would really not put me in minimum security. I don't have any kind of record. This wasn't a violent crime. So that seemed perplexing to me. The other thing was they had me on a mental health hold. Finally, I find out what that is. And it's because I was sent that their reasoning was, which didn't cut it with me because I'd already talked to mental health, was that because of my harsh sentence that they feared that I might hurt myself. And I said, you know what? I've gone through cancer. I've gone through the death of my son, which no parent should have to go through. I've gone through these people taking my husband and this trial in these last 3 years of hell. I said, I think if I wanted to kill myself, I would have done it before now, you know? So that took.
That's such a good question. I want to pause, Tina, for a minute. When will we get the truth evidence released regarding J6 hostages? When will they be released? This is a very disturbing thing to me. I was in California last month, and I spent an afternoon with a young man, he's about 30 years old or so, who spent 3 weeks in solitary confinement. He attended the J6 rally. He went into the building at an invitation of one of the guards. He wasn't part of any conspiracy. He's just there for the rally. He went into the building at the invitation of the guard. He left when he was asked by the guard to leave. He didn't do anything wrong. They arrested him and they put him in solitary confinement for 3 weeks. He didn't see another human being. He was locked in a box for 3 weeks. And then later he was released. Okay, after he went before the judge. That is huge. That is the sort of constitutional infringement on our God-given natural rights enumerated in the Constitution. But it's such an infringement of our constitutional rights. There's going to be hell to pay for that. And with Trump being able to select attorney general and things like this, let's just see. But anyway, thanks for that comment. I don't know, but we're going to have some developments.
A while to get through there. They were visiting me every single day. Mental health was. They wanted to give me a TB test, and I said, what do you mean a TB test? I said, anybody else in here had a TB test? We can't tell you that at TIPA. And I said, well, I didn't ask you who. I said, has anybody else in this pod had a TB test? And then the woman told me if I didn't get one, she was going to put me in the SHU, which is solitary confinement. And so I pushed back on that. I asked for the rules and things like that. People need to know their rights, Joe. The girl I was going to have on, and I can have on in the morning because she's getting ready to get out, thank God, was a volleyball player with Mesa State, one of their star players. She called in a 911 call about 5 days ago for a man that was convulsing on the street to the police. They sat in their car and they waited. But instead of them taking care of that man, they brought her into prison. They brought her into this jail. You know, my heart just really broke for her because she was missing her practices. She has.
Wait a minute here. Tina Peters is in prison unfairly, in jail right now, unfairly, and she's caring about other people. This is the kind of lady she is. I know her very well. This is a darling woman. Anybody who meets her falls in love with her. She's a wonderful, wonderful mom. She's a Gold Star mother. She's a wonderful human being. She just wants to serve, and this is the way they're treating her.
3 degrees. She is, a star athlete. Her parents were, her real parents, her birth parents, were on drugs and all kinds of things, and they used her identity. She thought that was over, and her adopted parents, or who she's been with, and she has never used drugs. So, I'll be bringing in people as we go. And by the way, welcome back to everybody.
What she means by that, when she says she'll be bringing in people as we go, what she means is she's going to keep doing her program. I mean, she's going to be bringing in guests.
I really appreciate everything everyone has done, the guest hosts that have stood in for me. I hear that they have done amazing, which I never doubted in a moment that the people that, that I've suggested to guest hosts wouldn't do a crazy bang up job. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to everybody out there, Joe, that has sent texts and letters and posts and just love, people that I've never even met. And then of course, people that I know so well, but I'm very grateful. So my attitude is good. I took a job basically mopping floors, cleaning the showers, serving, the meals. and I work to be very respectful to the guards. I think they're starting to realize that I'm not the awful person that the Daily Sentinel with. Now someone checked, there's 780 articles defaming me in the Daily Sentinel. And so I'm just being me here. Every day is a new drama. There's fights. There's people being thrown into solitary. There's things over stupid stuff, very immature. Some of these girls have never gone to school because they grew up with parents that were addicts. And it's really difficult to see. But I'll tell you this, I'll tell you a good story. And it's been hard. Every day is like a week. Every week is like a month. And every month, I'm coming up on my first month, seems like a lifetime. And so that part's hard. Not seeing my dog. She was howling yesterday. I've never heard her do that. She's just moaning. She's grieving, which is hard to see. And so, but I know we have a higher cause, Joe. I know that with what's going on with Griswold right now, it's so egregious that it doesn't even compare to what she accused me of when I sought to protect federal election records.
So that's just a taste. There's a longer version, the full version, and it's on Frank's speech, and you can see her whole. It's called The Truth Matters. She has a bunch of videos there. About 6 or 7 of them I've been in the video with her as well. So if you want to see that full interview, Joe Oltman, who was interviewing her there, is handling those interviews, and I think they're trying to do 2 or 3 a week with her live out of prison. So. Anyway, I encourage you to do that and see that it's kind of a sad thing to see her. So how about if I end on a happy note? How about if I end on a happy note? There we go. How can you not laugh? I think it's very important. It's very important during war that you laugh. You see it a lot of times with nurses in hospitals that have to deal with serious trauma. When they're with the patient, they're very focused and they're taking care of the patient's needs. But when they leave the patient and they go into the other room, in the nurse's room, they have to laugh. They have to find a way to release that pain and to release that angst. And we are in a war, and we have to get that war mindset. So it's important that we remember to laugh. And there's something very joyful about doing God's will, something very joyful about doing what you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to be doing it. So I urge you all to take my advice, like I said from my sermon. Figure out, be humble, seek God's will. And if you want more information, you can to see my testimony with Tina Peters, or if you want to see that video again, I'll put that information up for you. Anyway, until next time, thanks for coming, everybody.